President Trump is departing for Davos, Switzerland tonight to attend the 2026 World Economic Forum, an issue more than likely to take center stage there in Switzerland, the Trump administration trying to take control of Greenland. Now, early this morning, the president wrote on social media that he had a, quote, very good telephone call with the head of NATO. Mr. Trump also said he has agreed to a, quote, meeting of the various parties in Davos, but it's not yet clear who will attend that meeting. The president spoke to reporters about his push for Greenland while leaving Florida last night.
Explain this to the European leaders in Davos when they push back on your Greenland plan.
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it.
And we have a team of reporters following the president's upcoming appearance in Davos. You're looking at CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio. He's live outside the UK Parliament, where Speaker Johnson addressed lawmakers a few hours ago. But let's begin on the right of your screen with CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand, who is at the White House. Good morning, Natalie. So help us understand what the president will specifically be doing at this year's World Economic Forum. And I'm wondering how much this Greenland ambition will overshadow that.
Yeah, Errol, it could likely dominate conversations in Davos because clearly, as we've seen and heard, this is #1 top of mind for President Trump right now. And also the European allies who he's threatened with tariffs over this topic. We know that President Trump is scheduled to give a big speech tomorrow, shortly after arriving in Switzerland. And he's also previewing these possible meetings with NATO members, saying that he's expressed to everyone that Greenland is, quote, imperative for national and world security. And even though international leaders, we've heard them express outrage over the president's talk of taking over or acquiring Greenland, as you heard the president said, he believes that they're not going to push back too much at the end of the day, saying, quote, we have to have it. Now, the president on his way back to Washington last night was also asked by reporters about, this new message linking Greenland to the Nobel Peace Prize, saying because he didn't win it last year, he no longer has an obligation to think, quote, purely of peace, saying he can now think about what's good and proper for the United States. Here's what the president said last night.
I don't care about the Nobel Prize. First of all, a very fine woman felt that I deserved it and really wanted me to have the Nobel Prize, and I appreciate that. If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. I really don't care about that. What I care about is saving lives. And I think I've saved tens of millions of lives.
Now, this growing standoff, international standoff over Greenland comes as we've learned that military aircraft are set to arrive in Greenland for what's being described as long-planned activities by the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. That's a joint U.S. and Canadian defense organization. And in a social media post, NORAD says this activity has been coordinated with Denmark and the government of Greenland. And again, they are stressing that this is considered routine and planned well in advance, but obviously it comes at such a sensitive time, Errol.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Natalie Brand with the top story there at the White House. Natalie, thanks. Let's jump to CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio. He's live outside Britain's Houses of Parliament. Ramy, good morning. As we mentioned, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson addressed Britain's Parliament behind you a short time ago. Give us some highlights from that, especially the tone that he's striking while President Trump maintains his threats over Greenland.
Yeah, Errol, he came across as warm, friendly, and diplomatic, and I feel that if it weren't for what's happening between the United States, Europe over Greenland, that the headlines that I just said, these adjectives about the special relationship would really be a non-headline. But here we are with everything that you've just outlined with Natalie, and it is quite stark, quite jarring as he's trying to put this, I guess, best face forward. He did toe the line of President Trump, talking about secure borders, talking about stronger lethal militaries, and also about the fundamental freedoms of speech. He also said that the U.S. and the U.K. are close allies and that they do have a strong, constructive relationship. Here's more.
I told the president that I felt that my mission here today was to encourage our friends and help to calm the waters, so to speak, and I hope to do so. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, let us look to agreement, continue our dialogue, and find a resolution, just as we always have in the past.
So very calm, very diplomatic there. I want to point out that this is the very first time, this is historic, the first time that a U.S. Speaker of the House has directly addressed the Houses of Parliament in the 250-year relationship between the U.S. and the United Kingdom. So potentially the Speaker wanted to make sure that his first time making history was something that was remembered in terms of a diplomatic way. But his counterpart, the Speaker of the House of Commons, actually brought up a former dispute, the first dispute, the Boston Tea Party. And I just want to read you the quote here. She said, "Yesterday we had a chat over a cup of tea about our first trade dispute, the Boston Tea Party. We've only just forgiven you about that, but I'll say no more about any others." I'll just add, of course, now we know there are many, many others.
We've only just forgiven you. Okay, a little bit of British humour there. Ramy, and while the House Speaker was trying to strike this tone overnight, President Trump criticised a number of U.S. allies, including the British government. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and here's where that emotional dial turns the other way, right, Errol? Basically, President Trump called the British government stupid. This is over the Chagos Islands. You might not have heard about them, but this is strategic in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It is where a strategic military base, U.S. and U.K. jointly there, home to the Naval Support Facility at Diego Garcia. Basically, what President Trump is saying is that the British government giving back the Chagos Islands to the country of Mauritius, which it took away from about 60 years ago, was stupid. The quote here on Truth Social, the UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity, that's in caps, and is another way in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. So he's putting Greenland back here in the mix and saying that that is why the United States actually has to take it over. The UK replied, though, from a government spokesman, said that the government will never compromise on security and that the US and UK base still will be there. The point there is that the US still has access to it over 99 years with the potential for another lease after that. So the strategic importance will still not go away, but the strategic calculus, they might have to talk about that after, well, into the 22nd century.
All right, we'll see how things unfold this week. Ramy Inocencio with a comprehensive update there from outside Parliament in London. Thank you, Ramy.